speaker for today, Dr. Jamie Mitchell, Assistant Professor at the school. Jamie was selected by the graduation committee to give today's commencement speech. Her research focuses on reducing cancer and chronic disease health disparities for older African American men, and for developing methods to improve communication between patients, their families, and health providers. Next Avenue, which is a division of the Public Broadcasting Service, named Jamie Mitchell as a 2018 Influencer in Aging. She also serves as co-director of the Community Liaison Recruitment Corps of the Michigan Center for Urban African American Aging Research, which includes the Healthier Black Elders Center in Detroit. In 2016, Jamie Mitchell was named the Student Union Teacher of the Year. That's an award from our own students. She's an authentic and skilled facilitator known for teaching the course Social Work and Social Justice, where she creatively integrates social theory, relevant current topics and events, engaging activities, and hybrid online content. Please join me in welcoming our amazing Jamie Mitchell. Woo!
My esteemed colleagues, Dean Videka, students, family, and friends, thank you for the opportunity to address you on this momentous occasion. As anyone naturally would, I searched far and wide for inspiration on what message to share with you this morning. I watched and listened to a few well-known commencement speakers who exhorted graduates on to great things. Thanks, Oprah. But ultimately, I too was most inspired by a book that, while only released a month ago, has already claimed the title of best-selling hardcover of 2018. It's an authentic and beautifully granular retelling of an incredible life. It's the autobiography of former First Lady of the United States, Michelle Obama. The book, titled Becoming, is divided into multiple sections. And while the entire work is absolutely captivating, it was the final section, titled Becoming More, that spoke to the power of Mrs. Obama's unfinished story, her commitment to the work yet to be done. I was inspired by that frame of reference to offer just a few insights from my own experiences and a bit of wisdom from others who came before me on what it means to set your sights on becoming more. But before we can talk about what's next, let's talk about what's now. We are here to celebrate the completion of a hard-earned credential, to honor and acknowledge your wide-ranging interpersonal, macro, community organizing, advocacy, and research skills. We are here to affirm that by choosing this profession, you are both implicitly and outwardly dedicated to a common ethic of care. You are dedicated to enhancing well-being and empowering individuals, groups, families, communities, and organizations. And the temptation is to treat this celebration, this reason why we're all here today, as some sort of finish line, when in fact, the word commencement is not indicative of an ending, but of a beginning. This commencement is your launch into a new career, new possibilities, and a fresh mission, however varied they may be. So while we traditionally celebrate the achievements of what brought us here, of what we've become, let's also take just a moment to elevate our sights and shift our conversation to becoming more than this wonderful moment. With the help of a few well-known voices, who I sometimes like to think of as mentors in my head, I recalled a few things that I might have needed to hear, some of what I wish someone had told me when I was sitting in your position as a new social work practitioner and later as a new social work researcher years ago. I was on the starting line of my own new journey, not knowing what the next steps would be, and I was quickly realizing that this thing called life definitely didn't come with an instruction manual. I hope that my experiences and words of encouragement will fortify and propel you forward on this first day of your new journey. So the first thing I learned on becoming more is that the seeds of personal and professional progress are watered by resistance. We know the times in which we are living. We've endured the collective trauma of political upheaval, rife with very personal consequences for those that we care for and serve. People have definitely been hurt and lives ended. Families have been separated, and policies have been enacted on every level that have purposefully disadvantaged and dehumanized our most vulnerable citizens and communities. In times like these, it's easy to become overwhelmed, to feel that our efforts to enact any type of change are no match for the crashing waves of injustice, retreating for a moment, only to return again and again with full force. But resistance takes many forms: voting, staying informed, speaking up, calling in, being brave enough to start a conversation across difference, and having the empathy required to see someone in their full humanity, even when they render yours invisible. Idealism is just that, but true resistance is also realistic. As esteemed writer Ta-Nehisi Coates says, "I don't ever want to forget that resistance must be its own reward." Since resistance, at least within the lifespan of resistors, almost always fails. Now that sounds a little disheartening on its face, but Mr. Coates is not saying that resistance is not powerful and effective, but rather that change is often frustratingly incremental. In other words, it can be slow. And so we may not change an entire economic or political system in a single generation, but we also don't stop trying. What we do is to continue to seek out opportunities, to be good stewards of our privilege and our platform. We aim to be influencers, not in the way that it's become fashionable, like the hashtag activism on popular social media, but in our own communities. You see, the problems that we face may be national or even global in scope, but the solutions are often local. And if you're willing to start the resistance in your own families, and amongst your friends and neighbors and colleagues, to build coalitions for change in your faith communities, and challenge the status quo in the proximal pockets of power that often shape our everyday lives, that is where the spark of change will be most monumental. And that is where you'll find your greatest reward. And in all your efforts to be these change agents, you're going to need a thick skin. So I've learned that becoming more also requires resilience. You see, we know the sting of disappointment. We tread around and over and through it more than we like to admit. As Michelle Obama says, grief and resilience live together. We already know that in this life, and in particular in this profession, things don't always work out as planned. But we can be ready by thinking right now on day one about how to shore up our ability and our endurance to bounce back. How are we going to get back up and dust ourselves off and keep working on behalf of what we believe in? Because becoming more absolutely requires it. Shirley Chisholm, the first Black woman elected to the United States Congress, famously implored us by saying, "If they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair." That's resilience. In my head, I can also hear the words of famed writer James Baldwin when he said all those years ago, "The place in which I'll fit will not exist until I make it." That's resilience. Many don't know this, but this has been one of the most challenging semesters of my career. In a span of just 2 months, I suffered the death of my beloved grandmother, who was my first friend in the world. I endured divorce, and I heard words of disappointment that really touched me to my core. They weren't exactly a no, but more of a not now, regarding key plans that I had made for my future. Sometimes delay can sting just as much as defeat. These experiences caused me to reevaluate everything and to fight hard to beat back the overwhelming anxiety that accompanies imposter syndrome that many of us face. As some who know me would say, I'm not normally lacking in confidence. But this semester, I had to ask myself, maybe for the first time, do I belong here? And can I really do this? But here I stand, flaws and all, hey Beyonce. So I'd say that the answer to both of those questions is a resounding yes. Yes, we belong here. Yes, we can do this. I'd like to think that this too is resilience. And so as difficult as it may be at times, we must find a way to metabolize the chaos and fear, to move forward in the face of both external and self-doubt, and to marshal the resilience that we need to get out of bed every morning, intent on doing the work of becoming more. In my own humble experience, I wouldn't have had the fortitude for resistance, or the confidence in my ability to be resilient, if I wasn't surrounded by the power of true relationships. I can honestly say that I wouldn't be here today if it were not for a mentor in an entirely different field who saw in me something that at one time I didn't see in myself. I was a young doctoral student, graduating at the end of a Great Recession, with few job prospects in sight and student loans quickly coming due. Some of us may know that feeling. My mentor was Dr. James L. Moore III, Distinguished Professor of Urban Education and former Associate Provost for Diversity and Inclusion at The Ohio State University. Hold your boos. It was he who reminded me when I was steeped in worry and possibly willing to settle for a future that was beneath my potential, that I should aim for higher than what I could see at that moment. That even as a relatively low-income graduate student and social worker at the time, I deserved a seat at the table in academia. To encourage me and to demonstrate his belief in me, he gave me a gift that might not have seemed like a lot to him at that time, but it was everything to me. He gave me $1,000 to get a flight and a hotel room to a conference where interviews were being conducted for faculty jobs. I'd never been to this conference before, and nor did I have the means to get there. But it was there that I interviewed for and ultimately landed my first faculty job. If Dr. Moore didn't invest in me, and if I didn't believe enough in myself to show up at that conference, still carrying the weight of uncertainty and trying desperately not to let it show, I certainly wouldn't be here talking with you today. After that, I resolved to always pay it forward. And I encourage you all to do the same. I came to realize that even when I didn't think I had it all together, I didn't think I had much to give back, there was always someone coming up behind me who could learn from where I'd been. While I was looking forward in my new faculty position at esteemed colleagues and mentors whose successes I wanted to emulate, like our own Dr. Daphne Watkins, there was someone who was looking just that way at me. So I encourage you to build those supportive mentoring relationships in both directions. Even while you're figuring out how to take the next step up, reach back and demystify that pathway for progress for someone else. And I might add, particularly for others with less privilege than you. As Michelle Obama says, for every door open for me, I try to open a door for others. So let's invite one another in. Let's create and maintain spaces where we can pool our thoughts and experiences and steady one another, especially because it often feels as if the ground will never stop shifting beneath our feet. In my view, true community is a sacred space that everyone deserves to experience. And the growth that emerges from an authentic sense of belonging can be powerful, palpable, and infectious. Finally, I have learned that there can be no path to becoming more without reflection. I think it's difficult to set out doing social work, to helping, empowering, affirming the worth of others in any capacity if you do not know who you are. You see, there will always be people trying to define you as other. In fact, Ta-Nehisi Coates aptly reminds us that the entire narrative of this country argues against the truth of who you are. And so what reflection means to me is constantly making sure that there's no distorted filter, blurring my view of who I really am and my intentions behind why I'm doing what I've chosen to do. A few years ago, I read a book titled Year of Yes by the indomitable storyteller Shonda Rhimes. Shout out to the Scandal fans. In that book, she had a passage that I never quite forgot. She said, "When you feel the need to apologize or explain who you are, it means the voice in your head is telling you the wrong story. So wipe the slate clean and rewrite it without fairy tales. Be your own narrator." And so the practice of reflection is a regular opportunity to check on your own story of becoming and to remind yourself of what Laverne Cox says, that we are not what other people say we are. We are who we know ourselves to be, and we are what we love, and that is okay. So I encourage you to not let the smog of this society cloud or distort the reflection that you see, or to change you into something or someone that you do not recognize. In the epilogue of her book, Becoming, Mrs. Obama closes by saying, "I am still in progress, and I hope I always will be. Becoming is never giving up on the idea that there is more growing to be done." So graduates, I leave you with this. Pick up the mantle of your chosen forms of resistance. Put on the armor of resilience. Take in the power of belonging that accompanies true community and relationships. And reflect only the truest sense of who you are. And I'll add to that, always remember why you started. In my humble experience, doing these things will ensure that you're not only going to be able to celebrate what you've become, but you will be guided and grounded forever in becoming more. Thank you, and go Blue.